I love your like West and Jesse look.
Yeah,
Yeah. I haven't been watching enough Bravo lately.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. Welcome to The Most Important Thing. I'm Danielle DeMarco Neufeld.
And I'm Greg Neufeld. And together we're exploring how ambitious, busy families can build culture at home.
Because after all, family is the most important thing.
Hey, Dee.
Hi, Greg.
Welcome back to number 5.
Yeah, the fifth in our Wholehearted Parenting series. The Most Important Thing, episode 14 on boundaries.
Boundaries.
I feel like I should go dun dun dun.
Really?
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I'm like, boundaries. Yay.
And I'm like, boundaries?
Yeah.
Those have not gone well for me in the past. I think I need a rewrite.
Yeah.
So let's talk about boundaries.
Yeah, let's.
From the Wholehearted Parenting Manifesto, Brené says, "We will set and respect boundaries. We will honor hard work, hope, and perseverance. Rest and play will be family values as well as family practices."
I love all of that.
I think that it's worth framing our conversation in two parts. The first being boundaries that we hold within our home, within our nuclear family, and then boundaries that our family holds or you and I individually hold with the outside world.
Right. Yeah, those are pretty important, but very different mindsets.
Are they?
I think so.
Okay.
Within our home, I think we are in a lot more control.
Mm.
Within our home, there's less volatility.
Okay. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think within our home, we have a common language.
Yes.
And consistent practices around mutual respect and accountability and the way we repair after rupture, for example.
That's right.
That may not be the way that folks outside of our home tend to operate.
Yeah. And I think that within our home, that allows us to have more flexibility.
I don't love the word flexibility because I don't think that setting boundaries means you're inflexible.
No, not at all. The evolution of boundaries is a unifying principle at home because we can decide on those together, whereas other people's boundaries and our boundaries may come into conflict, and we have to decide what we want to do at those conflict points.
Sure. I mean, we can decide as a family, but I do think that the boundaries that we hold within our home individually aren't necessarily decided together. Like, I'm thinking of the fact that we do not let the kids sleep in our bed.
Right.
That was a decision that you and I made, really you made and I seconded, that the kids would probably prefer not to be our boundary.
Sure.
Right. But we are steadfast in that and choose to instead spend time in their rooms overnight if there's something that they need. Because that is, Brené talks a lot about how boundaries are what enable me to have compassion. And that when I feel safe and that my space is protected, then I am able to practice loving kindness towards another person. And a great representation of that is how much we both honor and value sleep.
Yes.
And so for us, it is really important that we keep our bed just to the two of us. Not even Winston is allowed on our bed, right? Overnight. Right. But that's something that you and I decided based on our values, as opposed to, and it's something that the kids have come to respect. But I don't think that if we had a family meeting about whether or not the children should be allowed to sleep in our bed, I think we would be outvoted on co-sleeping. I bring this up as an example, not because I think that no one should co-sleep, but because I wish I felt as resolved about other boundaries in my life as I do about this one.
Yes.
So this is an example of within our home where I think we are doing well.
Yeah.
Another one that I've been thinking about is our boundary with one another around not having difficult conversations when the sun is down. So we don't talk about work or money or any other sticky topic unless the sun is up.
That's right.
And I think that's been really helpful because late night conversations about difficult topics never seem to go well.
No, and it's worked really well for us.
Yeah, well, it's recognizing that our brains need rest and that they're not necessarily working as clearly at night.
Yeah.
So let's talk about where we aren't doing so well on boundaries.
Okay.
This morning's debacle comes to mind, particularly in this triangle of you, me, and Hunter, where, yeah, and so if I can just frame for the audience. So yesterday, without us knowing while we were upstairs working, Hunter and her little brother and sister, Jade and Maverick, decided that they were going to decorate their kitchen chairs with all sorts of stickers, sticky gem stickers and regular stickers, and really defiling would be the right word.
Yeah.
Really not making them look aesthetically pleasing, but also just really junky. And it's something that they knew that daddy wouldn't like. And this, let me just say that this really gets to boundaries within the home and how we all kind of ping pong off of each other, because when it comes to our shared space, you may hold more strongly the value of keeping things very nice and clean than I do or than the kids do. And so we have to figure out how to make sure that you feel safe and heard and seen.
Sure. So this is two separate boundaries. And I think boundaries represent values, right? And my value, sure, is keeping our things looking nice. But I'm always open to a conversation about how maybe I could be more flexible, in particular with things that they're using that they want to decorate. Sure, I'm open to those conversations. However, the boundary that I'm not okay with represents the value about telling the truth and about doing the right thing. And what Hunter did was she told our nanny that that you said it was okay.
Which I did not. We did not have any conversation about this.
Exactly. And so I felt violated from that perspective, one. And then two, seeing the total mess that was made there. And then three, that I knew that now Denny's going to have to clean up this mess that shouldn't have been there in the first place. So we're paying for somebody to clean up the mess that shouldn't have been there in the first place without a conversation about, could that have been decorated in a nice way? Could we have, maybe painted the chairs so that they actually look respectable and not like all junked up?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a lot. And there's a lot going on there. I think it put Denny in a weird position, Denny, our nanny, in a weird position. What comes up for me when you talk about what happened as far as Hunter not asking and not telling the truth about that I said it was okay to put stickers on her chair in the kitchen? A couple things. One, Hunter does almost everything, at least outside of this home, to the letter of the law. And so one thing that I've been working on in my own life that I've been kind of running a parallel process with Hunter because I see it with her is this idea of bending the rules. And when there are rules that you can bend, like the speed limit, she always asks us what the speed limit is, right? And we have to explain to her that like everybody pretty much goes 10 miles over the speed limit. Like that's not really breaking the rule, right? And so I see, even though she lied to Denny, which I think is definitely not okay, I guess I saw it as one of these rule bending things and an act of self-expression and staking her claim in our home, which is another theme that and all of you that are listening also know that I keep going back to this, family as a democracy and everyone having a voice. So I want to encourage her bending the rules. I want to encourage her self-expression. And so I definitely feel in conflict, and I'm trying to figure out where is the through line here that will feel right, or at least as a compromise to each member of our family. Because as I said this morning, I said, I feel like I'm the giant pole in the center of the circus, like this tent pole. I don't feel like I have a view on this one, and there's just like chaos going all around. Like you're triggered, Hunter's triggered, Denny doesn't know what to do. Jade and Maverick just start cleaning up because they kind of knew that Daddy wouldn't like it anyway. And so but they didn't want Hunter to be the only one with a beautiful chair. So everybody's kind of got their own feelings on the subject. And I think that this is a great topic for family meeting, but also so relevant to our conversation about boundaries, because whose boundary wins?
Right.
Who,
That's a great point.
like you have these really strong feelings that you just outlined across these three different ways that Hunter was in conflict with how you want things to operate in our
Four
home.
ways if you count the stickers. Stickers are like the most offensive thing possible.
Yeah.
Dads out there know what I'm talking about.
So this is where I really struggle with boundaries. I'm like, what are Greg's preferences and triggers versus boundaries that he has a right to uphold?
Right. Yeah, I'm still feeling this out too. But it's like pornography. I know it when I see it.
Okay, I'm glad that that's where that went once you said that word. Okay. So I don't know that we have an answer here, but this is really something that I think consistently comes up in our home. Today it came up about self-expression and stickers in the kitchen. it's just a lot to live. And especially as our kids get older and they still start to have more of their own opinions and want to take up more space in our home, which is something, as you know, we are encouraging, trying to figure out how are we making this a democracy where everyone's voice is heard, but we do, hopefully better than our Congress, not end up with a giant mishmash, but something that actually is consistent and makes sense to live in alignment with our values.
I feel very good that with the structures that we're putting in place, we can come to terms in some form of family meeting, family stories, trying to understand everyone's perspective. And this is a great example for us to talk through because I do want there to be an outlet for self-expression. And I need to hold the line when it comes to putting stickers on furniture. I just have to.
Understood. So as far as what can we commit to working on then, I think having this discussion at family meeting.
Well, and also letting Hunter know, hey, like let's have this conversation. What I really don't like is you trying to go around us because you know where that's going to end up.
Well, can we take some accountability and ownership there and say, you know what? She probably knew from past experience that daddy would just say no.
Right.
And that mommy would be an quote unquote easygoing pushover.
But it's a great topic for family meeting.
It's a great topic for family meeting.
We've got a family meeting topic wall right there for her to write on. I want to decorate my chair.
Okay. Understood. Well, I do think that you should give her that feedback then,
Sure.
that a different way to go about this. Because right now it kind of feels like she has this desire for self-expression or she has this creative idea.
Yeah.
And we're stunting that outlet as opposed to sharing with her and even maybe co-creating with her how this could have gone differently.
Yeah. I get it. Look, she's also right now she's the leader of the three of them. And when we're working and she comes up with some idea, she wants to lead and get carried away with it. It makes total sense to me.
Yeah, y'all, this is such a weird week because school's out, but camp hasn't started yet. So everybody's kind of all over the place. We're working. They don't have as much structure as they're used to.
Yeah.
So this is just a tough week, but it's an opportunity, I think, to really get clear and set intentions for the summer as well.
Right. Agreed.
Cool.
Let's frame the episode a little bit here for a moment. So we're talking about boundaries. We're talking about those within the home right now and how we can use some of the tools that we have, like family meetings, to better express what those boundaries are and the values that they represent. I think what you did last week around spending was a tremendous way of showing a boundary. So Jade lost her first tooth. And with the loss of her first tooth, she got $5 from the tooth fairy. And Hunter immediately said, let's go to the dollar store.
So Jade can spend her $5.
Yeah. And so,
yeah, I freaked out a little bit. And I was like, wait, family money, episode number 8. What is our process? And so I thought about living in alignment with our values and how to normalize money talk. And so, yes, me and GPT came together to come up with a little spending guide around what can you do? Like, first of all, congrats, you got $5. What can you do with it? What can $5 do for you? And of course, we talked about you can save it, you can spend it, you can share it, or you can wait until, and it had this great idea of what it called spending Saturdays. And so like once a month on a Saturday or Sunday, the family can buy with their money, our family can buy with our money, something that we've been looking for, something that we've been wanting, something that's on our wish list. And so that creates the container. I love a good container. And that creates the container for the things like a dinosaur puzzle or a sun catcher or a unicorn lamp that they've been talking about for months. And rather than immediately upon getting money from the tooth fairy, running to a store to just buy something, we can schedule a time to use money if we want to.
I think that's so cool. It's like organizational behavior there. Like we're teaching them that we can come together to decide the best use of funds and that it doesn't just need to be spending for one person. It could be for everybody, but we decide what that money goes towards together. And that once a month we do that so that you can build up this list over the month and figure out what is the highest order thing that you want to take care of.
Yeah. Thanks, GPT, because I think that was a really good idea.
So cool.
I mean, it reminds me of our quarterly budgeting meetings, right? Where you and I, we don't necessarily talk too much about big budget items or capital expenditures over the course of a quarter, but once a quarter, when we assess what we've brought in and where things are going, how investments are doing, then we can also talk about any big budget items that we want to spend money on.
That's right. Yeah. I love this. They're learning such great, I wouldn't say it's boundaries here, but this is a big value that's going to create the deliberate boundaries in the home around spending money and when we do and how we do it.
Yeah, well, another boundary is no, I am not taking you to the dollar store on Sunday morning with my time because you got $5. That's my boundary.
That's a great boundary.
The last thing I want to say is about how grateful I am for the family meetings, because one of the things that I read about that I'm finding so true is this idea that when you have a family meeting, you've automatically made space for these thorny issues that come up. And so this is 2 weeks in a row where complex, multivariate issues have come up where different people have different opinions on things. Last week being commercial characters, and this week being self-expression with stickers on our kitchen chairs, that I'm so excited to have the time and space allocated so that I don't have to worry about it in the middle of my workday on Tuesday. I know that we as a family are going to get out the whiteboard. We're going to write down everybody's thoughts and opinions, and we are going to collaborate on an outcome that may not feel awesome to everyone, but what do you like to say? That a great outcome is one where all sides feel uncomfortable?
Yeah. A
right?
great negotiation.
Yeah. So to come up with a great negotiation where all sides feel a little bit uncomfortable.
That's right.
But it's clear. And by the way, we can iterate on that, right? But at least we have something that we've all formulated together and we can set forth intentionally. Yeah, it feels really good.
It does.
Cool.
Yeah. You know, a friend said to me after listening, family stories, family meals, I love it. I love it. I'm putting those into practice. Family meetings feel a little too formal.
Mm.
I think that what I'm noticing with our family meetings is that Hunter, who's 7, is a very active and engaged participant. Jade, sometimes Maverick, just for the snack in the game, but that's okay. We're modeling the behavior for Maverick. Jade is easing into participation, and Hunter is there basically in the tribunal with the two of us making decisions at age 7. And it's not more than 20 minutes. So to be able to get these things out of the way and set up the week for success in 20 minutes, I think is really worth putting that structure around. So I'd encourage us to keep going here. And I am committed to continuing here. But anyone that feels a little bit like sheepish about jumping in, just make it one quick question to solve for, one quick problem, and have a snack. That's it.
Yeah, because I can almost guarantee that a problem will come up during the week.
Exactly.
That you don't feel like dealing with.
Exactly.
But maybe when you're all together, you can allocate 20 minutes on the weekend.
That's right.
Just an idea. Okay, great. So we've spoken a bit about boundaries within our family.
Yep.
Now let's talk about...
Now I got to lean back for this one.
Now let's talk about boundaries with other adults in our lives and how we as a family navigate boundaries with other individuals and the external world.
Right. So where do you want to start here?
Well, I'd like to stick to our 3 questions. So where do you think we're doing well?
With the outside world, with anything that touches acquaintances, schools, business, we do really well.
I think just to put a finer point on that, I'd say anywhere that we have been asked to commit our time outside of our family, whether that's birthday parties or extracurriculars or school commitments, that is a place where I feel like we have been living within our values, which is listening for the quiet no's and politely saying no thank you if they are there, not overcommitting ourselves, and really focusing on time with our nuclear family.
That's right. I agree. That's where we're doing well. Where are we not doing so well? Where compassion creeps in. That's how I would define it.
Say more.
If I hold a boundary and I let that boundary go, or I just let it be a little bit more flexible because of someone I love, I usually regret it. I almost always regret it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think that it's the same as with our kids. Naming something that doesn't work for you and the value that it represents is an extremely important skill in life. Because boundaries, telling somebody no and not naming why and not naming what that means for you, that's a failure because you're not communicating anything. You're just putting up a brick wall. if you can communicate that you have a value and that this boundary is set there because of that value, because it protects that value, someone can disagree with that value, and that's okay. But at least you've named what that value is. And so I try to name that value these days. But what I've noticed is that if my value is number 7 out of my most important values, and my boundary of number 7 conflicts with somebody's number 1, they will not hear me. They will not hear me because they will say, oh, you're being too rigid, because I care about being the matriarch of this family. And I'm the most important person in this family because that's how I was raised, because I respected my mother and she was the most important person. And it doesn't matter what you say about no sweets or don't give my kids cookies or whatever. I will do what I want because I'm the matriarch and that is my value. And I don't know what to do in those situations other than say, okay, I see you. That is no longer welcome in my home. And I don't know how to do any better than.
Yeah, that's where you are today.
That's where I am today.
Yeah, I get that. I struggle with this idea of telling people your boundaries. You know, Brené Brown says clear is kind, unclear is unkind, which is like her version of make the implicit explicit.
Right.
And I think this also reminds me of Mel Robbins when she has this whole let them theory, right? Just let them. You can name your boundary, but then let them. I was talking to a friend the other day and she said, you know, Danielle, it's hard because the people who need the most boundaries are those that are least receptive to hearing them. And that really hit me because when I have tried to set boundaries with people in my life that I feel are not supporting my growth, and maybe I'm not supporting their growth either, I've tended to do it in a way that is, well, explicit, right?
Yeah.
And thoughtful, but explicit. And it has never been received well, which has made me gun shy to set boundaries and has made me kind of want to be haphazard and disorganized with them. There's this poet, their name is Alok, and they say, how naive was I to believe that if you just found the right words and put them in the appropriate order, it would necessarily lead to understanding. And that's kind of been my struggle with boundaries as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
The people that I want to set boundaries with cannot hear me. They cannot see me, hence why I need the boundary to begin with. And so a lot of my work today is in trying to set those boundaries quietly and doing them for me without having to explain myself. Because I know this much, that explaining myself only makes things worse.
Yeah.
I get questioned, I get gaslit, I get told that I am controlling and too rigid. Yeah, it's this, I guess the irony for me is that I try to set a boundary in order to be seen. And if I have to set a boundary with you, it's because you haven't seen me.
That's right. This must be a common scenario in parenting. It has to be, because there are so many sitcoms about this where there's the mother-in-law or the mother who just does not hear or see the children, and it's probably worth double clicking on. Because we've heard it from a couple of our friends where they have one grandparent that is extremely doting and playful and respectful of the parent's wishes, and another grandparent who is my way or the highway. And how do you deal with that, especially if those two grandparents are husband and wife?
Yeah, if anybody has the answers, please let us know.
Yeah. What we've found is you have to treat them very separately and let one in and keep the other away.
If that's what the doting grandparent wants.
Right.
Right? Because they are a team. And I really respect the institution of marriage, especially those that have been married long enough to be grandparents. Right? And so we need to make sure that we maintain respect for the choices that the grandparents in our lives have made as well.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean we need to bend over backwards to accommodate.
No, absolutely. There's this great quote from Nedra Glover Tawwab where she says, "You are not required to set yourself on fire to keep other people warm."
So true.
I love that. And, I think about that not even so much with the toxic external people in my life, but in the ways that I've tried to bend over backwards for the doting side. Does that make any sense?
Yeah,
The ways
it
that I've
does.
tried to bend over backwards to accommodate the grandparent that really is warm and go with the flow and understands our values. And where I am right now when it comes to boundaries is that, well, I don't know where I am. I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah.
It's a day at a time right now. I know, though, that as my children get older, as our children get older, they are more aware of toxic behavior because it is so unusual in our home.
Right.
And when it shows up here and it causes ripples in the way that you and I behave, in the way that the children behave, it's not acceptable. And it makes me realize that even if I have been doing my best to justify toxic behavior because I think, oh, I can handle it. I've got my self-compassion and self-kindness practices, right? If I can, I can handle it and this is just the way it is. There's something that happens when I look at our children and I say, you know what? I don't want them to have to handle it. I don't want them to have to come up with their toolkit for dealing with toxic people in our home. This is not the place for that type of behavior. This is your base camp. This is your safe space. And you do not deserve to have toxicity here.
God bless them. In our experience, our kids have shown up before we've had to say anything saying, I don't want that here.
So true. It's really weird, right?
It's so weird.
Talk about the intergenerational self. In all honesty, watching the way that our daughter stands up for herself with her grandparents is shocking and beautiful.
Yeah. Shocking and beautiful. Well put.
Okay. So we talked about things that we're doing well.
Mm-hmm.
Or talk about things where I don't want to say we're not doing well, but we really just
We're just learning. We're
we're
in the learning
learning,
space.
we're figuring it out. And what I'd like to commit to is just to keep a pulse on our children and the way that they see the world as we navigate how to set boundaries outside of our family.
Most definitely.
I'm not saying that I'm going to let them lead us, but I am recognizing in myself that there still is this kind of inner turmoil that creates a fog, if you will. And so I really value their inputs and your input in how we navigate relationships outside of our immediate family.
Mm-hmm. It's part of why I love the summer. The kids are shaking off the energy of their peers right now, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. They've got positive influences and negative influences, as we all do in our peer set, but they're shaking it all off, and you can really see what's stuck a couple days in, a couple weeks in, a month or two in to having no school. So I'm excited to see how our kids show up this summer. And as we prepare for a couple weeks of travel, just the nuclear family, that should be pretty special.
Yeah, summer is a great reset. The space, it's beautiful. Okay, so boundaries. We definitely don't have this all figured out.
No way.
We are bumbling through it, but we are trying to do it with some intentionality.
Yeah. And call to action is, what do you do in terms of boundaries at home for your kids, with your kids, for helping your kids set boundaries with their friends, for setting boundaries between your nuclear family and your extended family? These are all things that we'd love to hear about.
Yeah. How are you modeling boundaries with people in your life for your children? It wasn't modeled great for me. And so I would love to hear how others are doing it.
Yeah.
All right. So to recap, the most important thing about boundaries, the point of a boundary isn't to push people away. It's to make it safe enough to stay connected. There's a pretty famous quote at this point by Prentice Hemphill, who says, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously.
Yes.
And sometimes with my children, that distance is centimeters.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is states.
States.
So
countries.
I think both are important. And just knowing where we're at can be really clarifying.
Absolutely.
Okay. More to be revealed on this one.
Leave it here for now. More to be revealed.
Love you, Goosey.
Love you, Goosey.
Hey guys, if you're still here, you're definitely our kind of person. Thanks for spending this time with us on the most important thing. If this episode resonated with you, we'd love for you to follow us wherever you get your podcasts and share it with someone else building family culture on purpose.